The very Republican senators who voted to acquit Donald Trump for inciting the insurrection were actually scared for their lives as the violence was taking place in the Capitol building. In fact, Jonathan Swan from Axios shed more light on this during a recent episode of his podcast, How It Happened. Let's take a listen.
Eventually, the senators reached their destination. It was a large hearing room with rows of long tables covered in black cloth, secured by a perimeter of armed guards.
It was way too crowded for COVID.
The Senate Sergeant-at-Arms had gotten up on the podium to address the senators, and he can't get the words out. He's emotional, his voice is cracking, he can't really finish his sentences. And Senator Lindsey Graham just snaps, he freaks out, and he starts yelling at the Sergeant-at-Arms. "This is ridiculous," Graham shouts out. "You need to use every resource and every weapon to take back the Senate. Get these thugs out of here." The Democratic Senator, Sherrod Brown, yells back at Lindsey Graham, "Shut up, let him speak." Republican Senator Tim Scott tries to settle everyone down. He's a man of deep faith, and he asks the chaplain to lead the room in prayer. So you've got more than 90 senators and their staff bowing their heads and praying together while this violent mob elsewhere in the Capitol was causing mayhem.
So remember, Lindsey Graham not only acquitted Donald Trump, but he went on to criticize Mitch McConnell for giving a speech after he also acquitted Donald Trump, saying that Trump is in fact responsible for the violence that broke out that day. So, Lindsey Graham on the day, went from wanting to question the Electoral College votes to then giving this like impassioned speech on the Senate floor when he chose to stop questioning the Electoral College votes because he was terrified after the riot took place. And I want to just quickly remind you all of what that scene looked like before I hand it over to you, Cenk. So let's take a quick look at what Lindsey Graham's behavior was like on the Senate floor after the rioters had done what they did.
It is over. The final thing, Joe Biden, I've traveled the world with Joe. I hoped he lost. I prayed he would lose. He won. He's the legitimate president of the United States. I cannot convince people, certain groups, by my words, but I will tell you by my actions that maybe I, above all others in this body, need to say this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lawfully elected and will become the president and the vice president of the United States on January the 20th.
Of course, Lindsey Graham has now turned back around and is back to kissing Donald Trump's ass. When he was afraid for his life, he was like, why aren't you defending us, Sergeant at Arms? Why aren't you defending us? And then, of course, the minute his life is no longer in danger, Graham turns around and is like, precious, must have power. Okay, so that's who Lindsey Graham is. He's just the sickest man in America. Congratulations, Lindsey Graham. You've just replaced Ted Cruz. You must be so proud. But I want you to get a sense of how pathetic all of those Republicans are. You hear that podcast? They were all praying for their lives with bowed heads. I hope Donald Trump doesn't have us murdered. Then they turned around and voted to protect him. Can you imagine anything more cowardly? Anything more pathetic? The only thing I can imagine is if they weren't trying to kill you, they were just like maligning your family members, like calling your wife ugly and saying your dad's a murderer. Oh, right, that's Ted Cruz, the second biggest defender of Donald Trump. There is no bottom to the politician barrel, and especially among Republicans. At least the Democrats were pissed and then voted against Trump for trying to kill them. Look, guys, I know they were looking to murder Nancy Pelosi. That's clear on the record. They were hunting her. They were hunting other congressional representatives, etc. But the main guy they were trying to kill, that Trump's mob, was Mike Pence, the Republican vice president. I keep emphasizing that because Republicans turned around and said, oh my God, now that we're not dead, now that Trump failed in killing us and killing his own vice president, we're going to vote on his behalf. If you saw it in Game of Thrones, you'd probably think like, come on, they jumped the shark. Nobody could be that pathetic. Turns out they can.
Well, I think Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, who is a Republican, understands exactly what's going on. And remember, Lindsey Graham was confronted by a giant group of Trump supporters at the airport after he gave that impassioned speech on the Senate floor, no longer questioning the Electoral College votes for Joe Biden. And so he's terrified. I mean, two things drive politicians like Lindsey Graham: his own political future, his own political career, but also fear. I mean, they are absolutely terrified by Trump supporters. They're terrified of Trump. And Larry Hogan puts that out or lays that out perfectly in this next clip.
A lot of Republicans are outraged, but they don't have the courage to stand up and vote that way because, they're afraid of being primaried or they're going to lose their careers. I mean, I think, you got to look at what's good for the country and not worry about the next election or whether you're going to be elected to something or not.
And the New York Times also had this written in one of their pieces. Most GOP senators privately acknowledged Trump was to blame, yet most could not bring themselves to find him guilty of sparking the chaos, brutality, and darkness that engulfed the Capitol for fear of potentially offending the Trump supporters Republicans have come to rely on to win elections and will need again in 2022 if they hope to regain the Senate, a paramount goal of Mr. McConnell's.
So that's actually one of the best and most accurate things I've seen written in mainstream media. And I'm glad you picked that quote, Anna, because that's the one I was impressed by, because that actually does give you a sense of what's happening. And the only slight bone I'd have to pick with how they characterize it is they call it Trump supporters. No, it's Republican voters. Overall, it's not some minority of Republican voters that are Trump supporters. New poll out today confirming what every other poll has shown. 68% of Republican voters say Donald Trump is their leader. Not they support him, that's a much higher number. But 68%, over 2/3 say, no. I don't care what he did. I don't care who might have gotten killed. I don't care that they attacked cops. I don't care they were trying to murder his own vice president. I don't care. Donald Trump is our leader. In fact, 60 to 70% in a couple of polls say that they would leave the Republican Party and join any party that Trump supports. So the overwhelming majority of Republican voters liked what happened on January 6th. Because look, remember, right wingers in this country, and this is again what mainstream media will never tell you because they're afraid of offending Republicans. They have never been for equality. Literally, in conservatives and right wingers in this country have never once been in favor of equality, and they hate justice. So when it looked like we were gonna have equality and a democracy that elected someone they didn't agree with, they're like, oh, let's go to what we always go to, violence. During the slavery days, we did violence. During the Civil War, we did violence. During Jim Crow, we did lynchings, we did violence. So now we lost, well, then we don't like democracy. We care more about oppressing you than we care about America or democracy. We've declared war on America before. That's how little we care about America. So once again, they chose violence. And to this day, they love the idea of Donald Trump committing violence against every other politician. So that's who the Republican voters are. So that's why on the day that we showed you, Lindsey Graham on January 6th said, quote, count me out, enough is enough. And he turned around right afterwards and said, count me back in. It turns out my voters are monsters and my job is to kiss their ass.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, we really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.